Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Trip of a Lifetime podcast with me, Celeste.
And me, Jasmine.
Now, today we're talking about New Earth, Season 2, Episode 2. It aired on the 15th of April 2006. It was written by Russell T Davies and directed by James Hawes. Your general thoughts, Jasmine?
I'm okay with this one. This one's good in some places, in other parts I wasn't as keen on, but that's just my personal taste. I did think it was a decent episode. Like, it wasn't, terrible. And it wasn't one of those episodes that was really amazing, but it did have some nice themes and ideas in it as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's very middle of the road. Some people like it more than others, but generally most people are going to view it as a kind of, somewhere between a 5 and a 7, you know what I mean? I feel like this is the first proper episode with the Doctor in the sense that he's there for the whole thing, whereas Christmas Invasion feels more like a Doctor Light episode because he only shows up in the final act, whereas this one you fully see him, you get the whole dynamic between him and Rose, the fact that they both still have the hots for each other. Cassandra. We've got Cassandra back. I think she, other than the Daleks and the Slovene, is the first returning villain. Yeah. I think I prefer Cassandra in this episode because I feel like she feels more like an actual character rather than a caricature, if that makes sense.
I love Billie Piper's portrayal of her. I feel like it's quite, and it brings her more layers than just Cassandra, the lump of flesh.
Yeah. David's version of Cassandra is interesting. I love how camped up he gets, though. I really love that he's not afraid to be silly. And also Billie Piper's accent when Rose is possessed by Cassandra is actually closer to her natural accent than Rose's accent is. It's not quite that. It's more exaggerated. It's like a more exaggerated version of her own accent, if you like. And then you've also got at the end Chip. I don't know the actor's name who plays Chip, but I really liked his portrayal of Cassandra and how he changes from this kind of really shy, very attentive Irish accent to this, English accent, very, camped up again, kind of. It does. All three of them are very successful in showing that it's a different character. What did you think of the cat nuns, the Sisters of Plenitude?
I like them. They're very interesting characters, and I swear we have a later episode where we have cat-like people.
Yeah, Gridlock in Series 3, you get Novice Haim comes back, and you've also got Brannigan as well in that episode. I meant more like the prosthetics.
Oh yeah, I really like the prosthetics. It did look, to me it looked quite real. It didn't look like fake. It didn't look like, oh, they're wearing a mask. It looked like, oh, they're cat people,
Exactly. And I also liked how later on, when you have those shots of all the extras and things when they go into quarantine, and you've got all the cat nuns with their veils down, because it meant that they didn't have to put prosthetics over all the people, and they could also superimpose the same person in shots. They might not have actually done that. That's more of a Marvel thing to do, honestly. I don't think they would have had the budget to do that, but they could have done that, theoretically. I remember before Rose left, and jumping right to the start, you've got that little bit of, Jackie handing the bags to Rose, putting them in the TARDIS. You've got Mickey once again pleading Rose to stay. That's when he says to her that he loves her, and she goes, "Oh yeah, okay, bye." It's essentially it's not those exact words, but that's essentially the sentiment. But also on the ground, where the TARDIS is parked, it's that same bit of land where she's with Mickey in Bad Wolf part of the ways, and she sees the Bad Wolf written on the floor, and you can actually, I don't know if it actually is Bad Wolf, but it looks like Bad Wolf has been scrubbed off the floor, that you see that vague outline of part of the word, although that could be me just reading into nothing. I'm not entirely sure if that's what that was, but it looked a bit like it, and if it was, that's very clever.
I did like some very slight. I'll just really quickly gloss over the beginning. There's a beginning part, like the kind of not quite the comedic elements, but it's sort of in a way comedic or like more light-hearted than what other parts of Doctor Who are like.
Yeah.
Like for example, you've got like the little shop joke. You've got the.
That's what I was trying to read, because my P looked like a V, and I was really confused for a second.
Would you like to add to that?
What do you mean?
Little shop.
Well, it's an ongoing joke throughout Tennant's era. He mentions it in Smith and Jones. I'm pretty sure he mentions it in. Oh yeah, and he mentions it in Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead as well.
And then there's. Okay, hear me out. This is
Yeah.
This is a far shot, right? You've got Matt Smith.
Oh yeah, closing
and
time.
He's actually in a little shop.
Yeah, well, it's not little; it's an entire superstore. But yeah, no, I know what you mean.
You've also got the disinfection scene in the elevator.
Oh yeah, because apparently behind the scenes they didn't tell Billy that they were doing that, which is why her reaction is so different to David. Is because they just didn't tell her they were doing that, or at least when they were going to do it, or something like that. So when she's literally screaming, that's Billy's actual reaction.
I think that worked nicely because you get
Yeah.
her genuine reaction to it, not just, oh, I'm acting because this is coming down on me. Oh my god, like, surprise.
Yeah. We've also got the face of Bo and Novice Haim. Now, the face of Bo is referenced a couple of times that he's got something to tell the Doctor, which will happen in a episode, which ends up being Gridlock in Series 3. I just wonder whether or not Russell knew what the face of Bo was going to say at that point, or whether or not he was still like, I'm going to use that, and I'll come back to it, but I'm not sure, because sometimes, the thing about writing is sometimes you have things in your head for years, and other times things just pop into your head like, oh, that'd be the perfect thing to do. It kind of, in the way that I'm interpreting it, I've no proof of this either way, that I think the first time he introduced the face of Bo, it was just going to be a one-off thing, and then there was a couple of other, that he referenced a couple of times throughout season 1, but then he would had no plans to bring him back until he realised, oh, we need a villain for episode 2 of season 2. Who are we going to use? Oh, we'll use Cassandra. And then, well, it makes sense to bring back the face of Bo as well. And then kind of he comes up with it through that, maybe. Because at that point, I wouldn't put it past Russell to have an idea, have the ambition of wanting to bring back the monster, but just not knowing when to bring him back, kind of thing. There's a small bootstrap paradox in this episode. I don't know if you noticed that. But so, at the start, when Rose finds the movie on the projector, and sees, Cassandra watching her old life, Cassandra mentions that that's the last time she's ever been called beautiful in that scene. And it's actually Chip, but her as Chip calling herself beautiful. It's a bootstrap paradox.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole loop with no start or end, which kind of, with time travel involved, it affects the entire event.
Okay. Right, I might get into something deep now with time travel.
Sure.
But in theory, I can't remember the exact Doctor Who logic with time travel, but it should be that it changes after Chip goes back, right?
Well, not necessarily. If it's a bootstrap paradox, it wouldn't. Because, when... Yeah, the whole Beethoven thing. Beethoven's music existed before that time traveller hypothetically went back in time, found that Beethoven didn't exist, and introduced the music as if he was Beethoven. So the Beethoven music has always existed.
Yeah.
It's just he didn't find out that was his role. So that's the whole thing about bootstrap paradox, is it can't be undone, otherwise bad things happen.
I would really like them to do more episodes on different kind of paradoxes. That would be kind of interesting in a way.
I honestly don't know enough about the other types of paradoxes, but I do think they use paradoxes quite a lot. I could name quite a few episodes where they use it, whether it's Turn Left, You've got what's the name of the episode? Angels Take Manhattan, or Angels Take Manhattan, where they actually break a paradox. Blink, yes, there is one in that. There are loads. You could name loads. Under the Lake Before the Flood, which is actually where that Beethoven clip is from. It's used constantly. Even Heaven Sent, that whole episode is tons and tons of bootstrap paradoxes looping round and round into a whole Groundhog Day type story. Yeah, technically River Song's entire arc is one big bootstrap paradox, because they both know where they're gonna. Because, you know, River always has the knowledge of let's kill Hitler, and the Doctor always has the knowledge of her death in Silence of the Library Forest of the Dead. Yeah, that was a really random tangent, but I just dropped my book again. It's just, I don't have much space here, so
really quickly adding on to your bootstrap paradox with Chip and Cassandra.
Yeah.
I also just gonna say this really quickly. I really like the scene where she tells herself she's beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't actually end up finishing that scene. That was a lot because I had to go pick you up. But yes, because I had like 3 minutes left. But I remember enough of that scene to know it was really heartwarming. Yeah, it's very bittersweet. I think it's not quite as impactful as the likes of Vincent the Doctor, because that has a similar kind of thing to it, that bittersweet feeling. But I do think it goes a long way in improving Cassandra's character, because she is very much, no pun, pun very much intended, one-dimensional in The End of the World. It's very cliche, which is why I rated that episode kind of middlingly. I say, even though this isn't actually that much higher, but yeah, I do think her character's improved on a lot in this.
Very quick quote. Goodbye, trampoline. Hello, Blondie.
I mean, to be fair, Rose literally calls her a bitchy trampoline in the previous appearance, so I think it's a reference to that, honestly. I just loved the bit where Cassandra tried to do Rose's accent on the phone. The Doctor literally just doesn't realise anything's wrong when it's really clearly not. Although, to be fair, he could just be pretending not to notice.
But then there was this moment just a few minutes later than that, where I swear I saw that the Doctor, I could see in his face, he sort of was like trying to figure out what's wrong with Rose, like his face. I know he says this later, but his face, he was just staring at her like, okay, what's going on?
I think, going by the entire episode, a lot of people, I don't know, think it's a bit, I don't know, basic, if you like, as an episode. And it is. I'm not going to defend it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's one of those episodes that Russell had to come up with very quickly. But I think this episode is a commentary on animal testing. Because you think about it, it's literally, you've got cats experimenting on humans. It's literally animals experimenting on humans rather than the other way around, you know? And it's the whole ethics on whether or not that should be a thing. I mean, it's hard because obviously, I remember doing a debate on this in religious studies, on whether or not animal testing should be okay, whether it should only be okay if it's medicine and not cosmetics, and stuff like that. And it's really hard because on the one hand, you don't want animals getting harmed, but on the other hand, what else do? You know, like, you can't. I mean, at certain stages, you can get paid to do human trials and stuff, but I don't know. Is there an alternative? And in this, the cats have come up with an alternative using artificially grown humans, and it's still wrong. And it should be. I do believe it should be wrong. And the Doctor's standpoint is very much right, but it is hard. It is difficult when there is seemingly no alternative, if that makes sense.
You also have the colour symbolism of those, what are they called? Cells?
What, the pods?
Yeah, the pods, which is like this green light, which is symbolic of a variety of things such as toxicity?
Mm.
Toxicness?
No, that is a word.
Toxicity. I can't say it right. Okay, right. So you got that, or you got materialistic possessions, so like money.
Well, I wouldn't say that's relevant. Yeah, but it's not about Cassandra. But also just sickness in general.
Health and nature.
Yeah, health and sickness.
Mhm.
You know, because like chemists, for example, use green crosses to show that they're chemists. Yeah. What did you rate it?
I wrote it. I've said that wrong.
Rated it.
I rated it a 6.5 out of 10.
I give it a 7.
Something we can nearly agree on.
Well, I think we do agree on it. It's just kind of it's okay.
Yeah.
It's just it's even bordering on good, but it's just because it uses a lot of tropes, and also the actual ending. Well, it doesn't necessarily come out of nowhere. It is a bit, and then this happens. You know what I mean? Like there's no like foreshadowing, but yeah, I do think it's a good one. I think I gave it a 7 rather than a 6.5 or a 6, purely because of the performances of the actors in it. I thought they were all very good, enough for me to put it up a point because I enjoyed it. You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I do have to admit their acting was phenomenal on this.
Yeah, it's very campy. A lot of people, not everyone likes the body swapping trope, and I do think if you shouldn't overdo it, but I think, you know, they've done it once. I think that's enough, really. Yeah, so I think that's all we've got time for this time. I think, what's next episode? I think it's Tooth and Claw, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's next episode. Okay, so join us next time.
And we will not be amused.
Yeah. Yes, so next time it's the founding of Torchwood that we'll be investigating. Hope to see you soon.